episode 8, which is the final episode of season 1, Mila is sober the next day, life is back to normal, and she's no longer on top of the world, and the come down is rough. She ends up not being able to get up for days. She also then ends up at the psychiatrist's office and she plays him in order to get another prescription. And she goes doctor shopping as well, having perfected her little performance in order to get the medication that she needs. Remember, she's not at her mom, so she can pretty much do whatever she wants at this point. Ali gets into trouble for some oxy that went missing during her shift. Of course, this gets blamed on her and she gets fired for it. But she does remember that the pills in question went missing the day that Mila came to visit her and she had to leave Mila in the room. So she knows, Ali knows. At school, Mila ends up completely bombing her presentation with Sophia, but also, what the heck is Sophia wearing? Anyway, so Sophia ends up saving the presentation, kinda. No, she doesn't. She really doesn't. Oh no. Oh no. So Sophia's presentation is a very interesting interpretation on the Lexi's play moment. So Sophia is basically reading out her little teacher fantasies and everybody in the class knows that it's about the teacher because Sophia's like looking at the teacher and the teacher's just squirming in her seat. It's a little bit of a scandal and I really wanted to see this play out. Luckily, I guess, our little attention vacuum, Mila, faints at that moment, taking the focus away from this cringe. And she has to be taken away from school. Her brother takes her home then to her dad's place and he takes care of her. But then he starts searching all of her things for the drugs and he takes them and he flushes them away. And a desperate Mila is literally, she puts her hand down the toilet trying to get to her drugs. Later in the day, when the classroom is empty, Sophia's teacher asks her to come in and she says, please close the door. And I'm like, wait, why? Why are we doing this? Why are we closing this door? This teacher is such a bird as well, I swear. Sophia pretty much lunges at the teacher, trying to kiss her again, and the teacher pushes her away. And she tells her that she needs to A, delete the photos that she sent to Sophia, B, delete the catfishing profile, and just forget about the whole thing. Sophia is like, well, you can't make me do that. And then the teacher finally gets her brains, and she's like, well, I'm going to have to inform your parents. So Sophia hands the phone over in a big tantrum. It doesn't end there, though. She gets home. She goes onto her computer, and she accesses the photos and the chat logs between her and the teacher and she sends them out. We don't know who she's sending them to. I think she's sending them to the school, but just so we know, she sent them out. This is her revenge. So yeah. Mila's dad checks in on her. She's sitting there all numbed out because, all of her drugs are gone. But he reaches a hand out and he comforts her. But then we actually see that this whole scenario of them dancing together and him being a comfort for her is just all in her imagination. In reality, her dad is passed out on the couch and her house is a cluttered mess and she's actually dancing on her own. Her dad is just not going to be able to save her from herself or comfort her for her mistakes. He never was that man. Mila then goes into proper withdrawals. She's sweating, hot and cold, she's chundering, she has stomach pains. Layla goes over to Yanis's house and they talk. He tells her that this is like a dream come true, having her there. Later he's on set and he's basically the Timothée Chalamet of the show and he's playing a Nazi officer and his father is really proud of him and pushes him harder in the way that a typical stage dad does. When Yanis says that he's done being the cash cow, his father tells him that this is how they fund their lives, like the nice apartment, the nice cars. Like, he's going to have to fall in line and do his job. No self-awareness from the dad whatsoever that this is a kid and he shouldn't be shouldering the responsibility of taking care of an entire family when his dad could just get a job, Anyway, Yanis pushes up against his father in a very threatening way and they have their altercation right there on set. Mila chooses to go back home to her mom. It's not so much fun being underparented and left to your own devices, Mila, is it? She was pretty much going to kill herself with all of this unchecked freedom. But I don't know, in a way I feel like she has just enough survival instinct to keep herself alive and using. Busty finds out that his parents are, I don't know if they've patched up their marriage, but it's clear that they've just had sex and they're very affectionate with one another. He's very pleased by this because he thinks that if his father can win his mother back, he can also get his own life back on track. And so he starts by being an actual captain, a leader for his team. He apologizes for the distractions, he takes accountability for his mistakes, and he psychs the team up for the game. And I wish they showed more moments of this genuine strength so that the contrast with his psycho nature would be a little bit more interesting and risky, right? Like, to me, at the moment, he's just seemed like a bully and a jock. So him losing everything doesn't really matter. There's not much at stake. There's something a bit one-dimensional about his character, and I feel like I needed more. I kind of wanted it to go beyond the parents' marriage and how that impacted him. I wanted to go more into detail in general about his relationships with women and his own sexuality. I don't think he was questioning, but there's something going on with him. And I feel like that was a bit of a missed opportunity. We didn't get to explore that enough. Mia, who seems to love sabotaging and then staging a comeback, shows up to Ali's house with a boombox, wanting to be romantic and serenade her, as if, Mila. Ali, of course, goes down to talk to her. At the really important basketball game, Busty gets distracted when he sees his mother getting handsy with the coach again. He drops the ball then, but the team still goes on to win the game and maybe the championship overall. Later in the change rooms, as the coach is trying to talk to him, congratulate him on their win and for being a good leader, Busty's barely repressed rage just boils over and he beats his coach to a pulp, basically. Mila tries to convince Ali that she's changed and things are different now. For Ali, it's too late. She's lost everything and she doesn't trust Mila. She says that she wishes that she'd never met Mila and that she's a bad person. After Busty cleans up the blood off of himself, he goes outside and there's Lily waiting for him, and our favorite toxic couple has reconciled. It's so weird to see him seek softness and comfort and be all vulnerable like after being so violent and heinous moments before. Mila's wandering the street and she ends up at Giannis's place. He chases her away, saying that he doesn't want to be involved in the drugs anymore. She asks him for water then, and when he goes to go get some, she steals his phone. She goes to the dealer's house, she steals drugs, and oh my god, this is going to be Rue with the suitcase again, isn't it? Anyway, she goes and she sits in the street and she makes a very emotional phone call to her mother. It sounds vaguely like a goodbye call, but I can't be sure. And, she might go for one last hurrah and she won't limit herself, even though I still don't think she has a death wish. That's exactly what she does though, right? She goes to the park and she takes enough drugs to potentially OD. Layla shows up to Giannis's house and they're busy kissing and they're about to have sex when the dealer comes knocking on Giannis's door wanting his drugs. He threatens Giannis with a knife and he's like, "Where's your girlfriend?" He's actually referring to Mila, the druggy girlfriend. Anyway, Giannis is very confused because he doesn't know what's happening. He doesn't know what Mila did. It's possible that he doesn't even realize that his phone is gone at this point. But he's still getting threatened, and then Layla shows up with a gun. Remember a few episodes ago, Giannis had made the gun functional again and he bought bullets for it? Well, yeah, it's not a prop anymore. But earlier in the episode, Layla had asked about it and Giannis said that it doesn't work. So I suspect that Layla just wanted to scare the dealer off. The dealer and Layla struggle for the gun, it goes off, and Giannis is shot. Of course, Mila is long gone from the scenes of her crimes when the fallout starts to happen. Like all active addicts, she leaves an utter trail of destruction in her wake. But back to the scene right now, Layla needs to call 911 immediately because she's cradling his head and she's crying, and I'm like, you need to get your phone and call for help. Anyway, yeah, that was episode 8, the final episode of season 1 of the German reboot of Euphoria. I'm probably going to do some kind of post-mortem now that I've seen everything. Hi, I thought it would just be easier to attach this video onto the back end of episode 8 to share my thoughts. I know I've kind of made them known throughout the episodes, but now that I'm done with the whole show, I can confidently say that it was mostly a miss for me. So first of all, I found the marketing, or lack thereof, of the show to be really interesting. I had been keeping tabs on it since it was announced, and even I still had to make a lot of effort to seek out information and updates. These were never really readily available. Maybe they wanted to focus on their German-speaking audience, because the show is only available on a German streaming site with no English subtitles. I mean, I get that. And also maybe all of the conversations about the show are happening in German, and as an English speaker, I have no access to that really. But I really do enjoy a shared experience of watching a show. I remember during Succession's run, Euphoria, even season 1 of House of the Dragon, these were Sunday evening events, and I looked forward to Mondays because of the discussions that the episodes generated. And even the non-prestige shows, like teen shows on streamers like Netflix and Prime, Royals, Maxton Hall. Part of the fun was watching those shows together in a way. With the Euphoria reboot, I feel like I was alone in watching it, and while I do watch a lot of shows alone, I would have liked to talk to someone about this one. I guess I'm also just surprised that with the cultural impact of the HBO version, this one kind of came and went with very little fanfare. Second, the visual style of the HBO version was so intriguing. The cinematography, the music, they were so memorable that I promise you, if you use the words Euphoria aesthetic, most people will understand the vibe that you're talking about. It was provocative, it was kind of glamorous, it was mysterious. You wanted to know the backstories of everybody. what's going on? The German version didn't quite have that same impact for me. Nothing drew me in visually or story-wise, and I'm wondering if maybe that was the point. It wasn't meant to shock. It was just telling the story of some local German teens, and all of the events on the show feel kind of realistic. Maybe a little bit too realistic and ordinary, because I just wasn't really that entertained. You know, while I was watching this show, I would often think about the side characters, and I think, you know, once we get to their backstories and focus on their episodes, I'd be more invested, but there was just no there. Take Busty, for example, the Nate Jacobs of the show. He had some kind of sexual relationship with the main character, Mila. He recorded one of their encounters, and that got leaked. Maybe it is my fault for comparing him with Nate Jacobs, because I kept on waiting to see what other heinous secrets this guy has. And by the way, he didn't intentionally leak the video. The fact that he recorded it in the first place, we're not really sure if she knew that, and his actions after it got leaked shows that he's not a good guy. His presence on the show feels vaguely dangerous, and you know that there's something going on with him. The popular jock with the perfect girlfriend, he looks a little bit emotionally detached and like he's going to unravel throughout the show. Anyway, we see that part of his trauma is that he once walked in on his basketball coach having sex with his mother. Now, that would be triggering for most teenage boys, but a few things make this particularly damaging for Busty. The fact that this is his basketball coach, this very masculine figure of authority in his life, someone that he may have looked up to and respected. This is happening in Busty's own home, which is usually a safe space, so it's quite disorienting for him. How does he escape this when it's happening at home? What kind of boundaries does his mother have to be doing this in the family home? The kind of sex that his mother was having with the coach, it was very steamy. This is not missionary on a bed sex, which would have been bad enough. His mother is young, she's really pretty and passionate, and it's kind of graphic. No teenager wants to see their mother like that. And so he has these repetitive, intrusive thoughts about it, and it fuels his own issues with sex, masculinity, identity, and his relationship with women, obviously. All of this confusion and repressed rage would make for a really compelling story. But the show never really gets into it with him. They give us the traumatic event and they hint that he's not quite right, something's happening, but they don't really have anything else to say about it. Busty's storyline doesn't even feel like it's from his own perspective. We don't get to spend enough time being in his head, so it just feels kind of distant and restrained. So many of the backstories on the show are set up this way for the sake of having a traumatic backstory, but then they feel kind of detached from the characters in the present day. Ali's story of childhood neglect and her personality disorder are the same. So they set up this traumatic backstory in flashbacks, and now we're dealing with Ali trying to pick up the pieces of her life. But she is such a passive and uninteresting character that you don't really feel anything for her. There's no like present day connect with that past trauma. What was the purpose of her character apart from being a love interest for Mila? We don't know. Why did we get this whole backstory? We don't know. Also, her acting, the girl who plays Ali, and she's not the only one, the acting was pretty one note. It was pretty bad. And so I personally never believed for a second that she was in love with Mila or that she liked Mila. So yeah, so this was a common theme throughout the show. They had these character sketches for who they were, but there was no through line that brought it all together. Third, the stakes on the show felt really low. So even when Kiara goes to see her sugar daddy date, the setup for this feels kind of rushed. She's not slowly being lured into the seedy underworld of sex work. We don't see her being seduced by it and finding herself doing things that she wouldn't otherwise do. She just basically wants to be famous and get some clout, and she wants money. So she clumsily goes along with selling her panties to some stranger, and then it's over, and you're like, well, okay. As for Layla and Giannis, this storyline had the most potential for me, and I enjoyed it the most in the beginning anyway. So while Layla is a very pretty girl, she's often overlooked because she's not as thin as the other girls. I wouldn't even call her plus size because she's really not. She's just not that skinny. And on the one hand, Giannis, this famous, attractive, rich guy, still being into her and her size or her weight not being an issue is great. It shouldn't be an issue. It's normal. Still, that doesn't make for interesting storytelling. I mean, he's a teenage boy after all. I love that he's not a shallow guy and that he could quite easily connect real-life Layla to the online version that he fell in love with. But resolving that storyline and having them being happily together by episode 8, it felt too easy, boring, safe. I wanted him as a teenage boy to have maybe struggled a little bit more with his expectations. I wanted it to be emotionally messy and vulnerable, but he's just so accepting that it just falls flat. It's boring. When you talk about endings feeling earned, your character needs to go through a lot to get to that endpoint, right? And here, the payoff was just so quick that it felt like they wasted some great build-up and some opportunities to make Giannis into a little bit more of a complex character and not just this sad, lonely child star. Layla in the show, I get the sense that she is kind of confident, which is great. Any girl who's dating a rich, famous guy, sure, she's into the fantasy of dating this perfect guy, but she must have some insecurity. She must have some questions, something. But yeah, Layla also just kind of goes along with it. And their dynamic before was just like two classmates. Layla was annoyed with Giannis half the time because he wouldn't show up to do their projects, and they didn't see each other. Like, Giannis didn't see her. And so I think I would have liked more of an exploration of that changing relationship, right? Them realizing that actually they have a really profound relationship with one another because they've been opening up to each other. And so if I'm not going to be drawn in by the music, the cinematography and the vibe and the aesthetic, then the storytelling needs to be really solid, and it just wasn't there for me. And I think finally our main character is one of the least interesting people on the show, which is fine. She's the narrator, but she's even a boring narrator. This could have been a language barrier thing, like I wasn't catching all the nuances, but I don't know. I still didn't really connect with her. I didn't really connect with any of the characters. So, and yeah, those are my thoughts on the new Euphoria. I guess we're going to wait until January, I think, for the HBO version to come out, the final season. And yeah, if you have seen this one, feel free to share your thoughts, and thank you for watching.